Now we're going to turn to the other extreme of music, the Middle Ages Hildegard von Bingen. And you'll see that she was an incredibly influential player, but 1,000 years earlier than the Beatles. She was born in 1098, died in 1179. She was a noblewoman, but she entered a cloister at age 15, ended up being a composer, a visionary, and a founder of the Benedictine community in the town of Bingen on the Rhine. Her work includes a trilogy, an encyclopedia of medicine and natural science, and the largest body of music in the Middle Ages that we're aware of. If you look on YouTube, you'll find numerous recordings of the songs that Hildegard von Bingen composed. She was also known as the Sibyl of the Rhine, and she was very active in many areas as a writer, a composer, a philosopher, a mystic, a visionary, a medical writer, and a practitioner of the uh, of what would be called today ecology. And she loved nature. She's one of the best known composers of sacred monophony, as well as I said, the most recorded in modern history. And she's felt by many to be the founders of the scientific natural history in Germany. Her first convent elected her as Mother Superior, and she then founded two others nearby. So she was in charge of three convents at her death. She wrote theological works, botanical, medicinal, letters, hymns, antiphons, and so forth, including poems and miniature illuminations in the manuscript of her very first work. There are more surviving chants by Hildegard than any other composer from the entire Middle Ages. She's one of the few known composers to have written both the music and the words. One of her works, the Ordo Virtutum, is an early example of a liturgical drama, arguably the oldest surviving morality play. She's noted for the invention of a construed language known as lingua ignota. So really an incredible person, no matter how you cut it. The history of her formal canonization is complicated. Religious calendars in the Catholic Church listed her as a saint for centuries, but it was only in 2012 that Pope Benedict XVI uh, took her through a process that was equivalent to her being a saint, and later in 2012 named her a doctor of the Church in recognition of her holiness and the originality of her teaching. Uh, she was very sickly from birth. She was the youngest of 10 children, but there are no records of the other ones. And from a very early age, she experienced visions. She had a linkage to the collective unconscious that few had. Long before she undertook her public mission or even entered the cloister, her spiritual awareness was grounded in what she called the umbra viventis lucis, the reflection of the living light. So she wrote about this from my earliest childhood, before my bones, nerves, and veins were fully strengthened. I've always seen this vision in my soul, even to the present time, when I'm more than 70 years old. In this vision, my soul, as God would have it, rises up high into the vault of heaven and into the changing sky and spreads itself out among different peoples, though they're far away from me in different lands and places. And because I see them this way in my soul, I observe them in accord with the shifting of clouds and other created things. I don't hear them with my outward ears, nor I perceive them by the thoughts of my own heart or by any combination of my five senses, but in my soul alone, while my outward eyes are open. So I've never fallen prey to ecstasy in the visions, but I see them wide awake day and night. I'm constantly fettered by sickness, often in the grip of pain so intense it threatens to kill me. But God has sustained me until now. The light which I see thus is not spatial, but it's far, far brighter than a cloud which carries the sun. I can measure neither height nor length nor breadth, but I call it the reflection of the living light. And as the sun, the moon, and the stars appear in the water, so writings, sermons, virtues, and certain human actions take form for me, and they gleam. So Hildegard and the daughter of a count were enclosed together in this cloister at age 14. They formed the core of a growing community of women attached to the monastery of monks, which was named for a particular type of female hermitage. Uh, her partner Jutta was also a visionary and attracted many followers that came to visit her. And Hildegard states Jutta taught her to read and write, but she was unlearned and therefore incapable of teaching Hildegard sound biblical interpretation. So the written record of the life of Jutta indicates that Hildegard probably assisted her in reciting the Psalms, working in the garden, other handiwork, and tending to the sick. This might have been a time when Hildegard learned how to play the 10th string psaltery. Volmar, a frequent visitor, may have taught Hildegard simple psalm notation, and the time she studied music could have been the beginning of the compositions that she'd later create. Upon Jutta's death, Hildegard was unanimously elected magistra or mother superior of the community, and the abbot asked Hildegard to be the prioress under his authority, but Hildegard wanted more independence for herself, and so she asked the abbot to allow them to move to a nearby town. This was a move toward poverty from a stone complex that was well established to a temporary dwelling place. And when the abbot declined Hildegard's proposition, Hildegard went over his head and received the approval from the archbishop. So the abbot didn't relent until Hildegard was stricken by an illness that rendered her paralyzed and unable to move from her bed, an event she attributed to God's unhappiness at her not following his orders to move her nuns to the nearby town. So it's only when the abbot himself could not move Hildegard that he decided to let the nuns have their own monastery. So Hildegard and approximately 20 nuns moved to this new monastery, and the rest was history. And in 1165, she founded a second monastery for nuns, and then a third one. She said that she first saw the shade of the living light at age 3, and by age of 5, she began to understand she was experiencing visions. She used the term visio, Latin for vision, to describe this feature of her experience. She recognized it was a gift she couldn't explain to others. She explained that she saw all things in the light of God through the five senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. She was hesitant to share her visions, confiding only to Jutta, who in turn uh, told her tutor and later secretary. And throughout her life, she continued to have many visions. At the age of 42, she received a vision she believed to be instruction for God. Write down that which you see and hear. Still hesitant to record her visions, Hildegard became physically ill. The illustrations recorded in her first book were visions that she experienced, causing her great suffering and tribulations. But in this first book, she describes her struggle within. But I, though I saw and heard these things, refused to write for a long time, through doubt and bad opinion and the diversity of human words, not with stubbornness, but in the exercise of humility, until, laid low by the scourge of God, I fell upon a bed of sickness, and then compelled at last by many illnesses and by the witness of a certain noble maiden of good conduct, the nun uh, Richardis von Stadi, and of that whom I'd secretly sought and found, as I mentioned, I set my hand to writing. So while I was doing it, I sensed, as I mentioned before, the deep profundity of scriptural exposition, raised myself from illness by the strength that I received, and I brought this work to a close, though just barely in 10 years. And I spoke and wrote these things not by the invention of my heart or that of any other person, but by the secret mysteries of God. I heard and received them in the heavenly places. And again, I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, Cry out, therefore, and write thus. Hildegard von Bingen. And so in this time period, 1147 to 1148, at the Synod of Trier, Pope Eugenius heard about Hildegard's writings, and so she received papal approval to document her visions as revelations from the Holy Spirit, which gave her instant credibility. When she finally died, the sisters in her cloister claimed they saw two streams of light appear in the sky and cross over the room where she was dying. So Hildegard's works include three great volumes of visionary theology, a variety of musical compositions for use in liturgy, as well as this musical morality play that she composed, one of the largest bodies of letters, nearly 400, to survive the Middle Ages, addressed to correspondents everywhere, ranging from popes to emperors to abbots and abbesses, and including records of many of the sermons she preached in the 1160s and the 1170s, two volumes of materials on natural medicine and cures, her invented language, and various minor works, including a gospel commentary. So several works were produced during her lifetime. She had her very first illustrated book, Scivias. Then she wrote a codex. There was a theological work, Liber Divinorum Operum, and at the end of her life, probably under her initial guidance, all of her works were edited and gathered into a single codex manuscript, which consists of 481 folios of vellum mounted by wooden boards, bound in pig leather, measuring 18 inches by 12 inches. So her most significant works were in the visionary theology, but in all these things in which she wrote, she was well into her 70s when she completed it. So from her 40s to her 70s is this huge body of work. She first described each vision. The details are often strange and enigmatic, and then interprets their theological contents in the words of the voice of the living light. And with the permission from the abbot, she began journaling visions she had, which is the basis for her first book and all of her later books. And so, having said that, the main thing to keep in mind here is these visions is what formed the basis for her music, and the visions are just incredible. There are 69 musical compositions, each with its own original poetic texts that survive, and at least four of their texts are known, but their musical notations have been lost. So this is one of the largest repertoires among medieval composers, plus her morality play that she wrote in 1151, apparently. The morality play would have been performed at the monastery for a select community of noble men, noble women, and nuns, and it was probably a manifestation of the theology that she preached. In addition to this, she composed many liturgical songs that are collected into a cycle, and the songs from the cycle are set to her own text and range from antiphons and hymns and sequences to responsorials. Her music is monophonic, consisting of exactly one melodic line. Its style has been said to be characterized by soaring melodies that can push the boundaries of traditional Gregorian chant and stand outside the normal practices of monophonic monastic chant. Researchers are also exploring ways in which it may be viewed in comparison with their contemporaries, such as Germanus Contractus. The Gregorian chant is a specific, highly organized type of plain chant, a broader category of earlier sacred music. The terms are used interchangeably, but plain chant refers to a whole family of traditions, while Gregorian chant is the dominant standardized form of the Roman Catholic Church. So all Gregorian chant is plain chant, but not all plain chant is Gregorian chant. Plain chant emphasizes the musical characteristics of being a single, unaccompanied melody, monophonic, and a cappella. Gregorian chant refers to the specific systematic body of music adopted by the Roman Church, named after Pope Gregory I, who inaccurately was credited with this idea. Another feature of Hildegard's music is that it reflects the evolution of chant and pushed that evolution further. It's highly melismatic, recurrent melodic units, and very haunting, as you can hear on any of these YouTube recordings. They're just wonderful, with a reverence for Virgin Mother. The melismas, are where you're singing multiple notes on a single text syllable, are present and vary in length, depending upon the type of chant you're dealing with. And these are systematically integrated into systems of modes and formulas. But there's other traditions besides this that we come across, such as, for example, Byzantine chant, which is related to this, but it uses microtones and is a characteristic absent from the standard Gregorian chant system. So you have a different sound. Hildegard von Bingen's music is considered spiritual and mystical because she believed it was divinely inspired by her vivid religious visions. She employed unique musical elements designed to help listeners and performers connect with the divine and experience a sense of heavenly harmony. So her music stands out from contemporary plain chant due to several innovative features that are ethereal and transcendent. There's soaring melodies and wide ranges, in contrast to most medieval chant. Her melodies often span 1.5 to 2.5 octaves, a very wide range for the period. And these soaring arches and rapid ascents were designed to bring heaven and earth together and lift the soul toward the divine. There's expressive leaps and angular contours. So she frequently employed wide intervals, vaulting fifths and fourths instead of the typical stepwise motion. So this angular style, these leaps, created a sense of drama and emotional intensity, helping to express an inner state of a character's spiritual journey. There's extensive melismas. She used long decorative passages where a single syllable of text is sung over many notes, and these flourishes draw out the text, allowing for deeper meditation on the words' meanings, contributing to the music's rhapsodic, improvisatory feel. Unusually for her times, she used musical gestures to illustrate text, such as reaching the highest notes on words like heights to emphasize the spiritual meaning, and her lyrics focus on spiritual themes like greenness of life, viriditas, and divine wisdom and the Virgin Mary, clearly framing the music as a form of devotion and prayer. So the demanding nature of her music requires significant breath control, can lead performers and listeners to a trance-like meditative state, facilitating a personal, cathartic, and therapeutic spiritual experience. Ultimately, Hildegard's music is mystical because it was conceived as a bridge between the earthly and the celestial, using unique and expressive musical language to guide the soul back to its harmonious origins with God. Her body of work in numbers is by far the greatest of any composer in the Middle Ages. Then she had numerous scientific and medical writings that led to a lot of innovative techniques in diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment of all kinds of physical diseases, all based on holistic methods and what would be called spiritual healing. Uh, she cataloged her theory and practice in two works for medicine, Physica and Causa and Cura. So we have 9 books that encompass the scientific and medicinal properties of various plants, stones, fish, reptiles, and animals. And the second book, Causae and Curae, is an exploration of the human body, connections to the rest of the natural world, and causes and cures of various diseases. In addition to all of this, the book's noteworthy for its organizational scheme. She, within the context, created the cosmos and then humanity at its summit. And there's the constant interplay of the human person as microcosm, both physically and spiritually, with the macrocosm of the universe that informs all of her approaches. Her hallmark is to emphasize the vital connection between the green health of the natural world and the holistic health of the human person. And so her book, Viriditas, or Greening Power, was thought to sustain human beings, could be manipulated by balancing elements within a person. There were 300 chapters in this book, and she gave specific instructions for how to do all kinds of things. Uh, the in various sections, again, she's dealing with diagnosis, prognosis, etc., and the effects of the moon, for example. And she elaborated on this and was really a leader at the time in doing all this. So having said all this, uh, it's likely that she learned simple Latin and the tenets of Christian faith, but was never instructed in the seven liberal arts, which were the base of all education in the Middle Ages for the learned classes. The trivium of grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric, plus the quadrivium of arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music, the correspondence that she kept with the outside world, spiritual and social, transcended the cloister as a space of spiritual confinement, served to document Hildegard's grand style and strict formatting of medieval letter writing. Contributing to Christian European rhetorical traditions, she authorized herself as theologian, although alternative rhetorical arts uh, uh, come up. And she was creative in her interpretation of theology. She believed her monastery should exclude novices who were not from the nobility. She didn't want her community to be divided on the basis of social status. She said that woman may be made from man, but no man can be made without a woman. And because of all this, the what she encouraged was preaching, letter writing, poetry, and the encyclopedic tradition. And her participation in these arts shows what a significant speaker she was. And most women were banned from social participation or interpretation of the scriptures. This is what she did all the time. So with that, you have it, Hildegard von Bingen. Thank you, thank you.